Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my slides first, and we'll go ahead and get started. Hope everyone is having a great end of week, towards the end of week, rather. And so if you're here to learn about the new test that CPS released and announced that they have changed the test for the 8th grade high school admissions, you're in the right place, okay? So just want to make sure everyone's in the right place before we begin. Okay, thumbs up if you can see my screen. Awesome, awesome. There's more people in the waiting room, but Kimberly, you've got it, right? Thank you, thank you. Thank you, Bertha, I believe. All right, so welcome everyone. My name is Lemiola Arinkatola. I'm the founder of the Critical Thinking Child. Thank you for being here. Thank you for joining us tonight. I imagine you're a parent of an 8th grader or someone who's, curious about the process and soon to have an 8th grader. And you've heard the news. CPS has replaced the HSAT with a new test called PreACT 9 Secure. Now, that test is not necessarily new. It's not new to us, the critical thinking child, but it may be new to many of the families because your child has not had an opportunity to reach the level where they would be taking the ACT. So it's new in the form of being the marker for, part of the point system as far as eligibility for selective enrollment or choice school that will happen in the fall. Okay, so based on the information that we have, we're going to roll it out, and CPS will be rolling out additional information. But the honest truth is that this is not our first rodeo, okay? I've been doing this for 15 years, and I would say in the last 6 years, there's been 3 significant changes. So we're a company that we're used to this sort of like last minute notification and having to pivot and modify and do all those sorts of things. So we're really not in a panic because we've been working on future forward initiatives um, for um, for any test, and we're going to kind of talk about that. So take note of the test date. It is official based on CPS, October 7th, 2026 for CPS students, and of course, there will be subsequent dates after that for non-CPS students. Okay. All right. So you guys can go to our website and read more about our initiatives and our awards and why we love to do what we do. But we're going to get to the nitty-gritty, which is the heart of the change, which is why you're here. Even though your child has not taken the HSAT, you probably heard from other parents what it used to, what to expect, so to speak, right? So you've probably been gearing up for a test that you heard was about an hour long, 2 parts, reading and math. So all year long, while you're working on those 7th grade grades to keep those really high, because that's, part of the point system, at least it is for now, unless they make any changes. So you've been working really hard on achievement-based reading and math, I would imagine. This test, it has like approximately 144 questions on the surface. Now, whether or not CPS is going to count all 144 in their composite, that remains to be seen, because we're the type of organization where we're going to look at like, like the data and really analyze the data, and it's got to make sense to us. So in some testing process, they give students questions, but not all the questions count. And we know that for a fact that is the case for like the traditional ACT. So we'll have to wait and see, because your group of students will be the first to have to take this type of test where it is a high stakes for high school admissions. Now, you see the time. I mentioned earlier that the process historically has been like 1 hour, 30 minutes for reading, 30 minutes for math for the past few years. But prior to that, the test was about 2.5 hours. And it included the reading, the math, and the ELA. And we built our platform with reading, math, and ELA. One of the things that we continued to do, even though they removed it and they condensed it, if we had a student in our test prep course, they still, if you can ask any student who was tutored under the critical thinking child, we still taught them the grammar and the English um, and the writing component. So we actually did not remove that because we felt that that was a very important skill. It is a very important skill, and it's a skill that when we track the students, allowed them to do really well on the ACT or the SAT when the time came. So we're happy that we made the decision to keep that in our curriculum. So it's going back to a longer test, okay? And I think the sentiment might be six of one, half a dozen of the other. Some of the students had really high anxiety when that 60-minute, 1 hour test first came out. I mean, students were fainting. Um, and so it's just really sad to have our students be under that kind of pressure. And I actually looked across the nation to see if other districts had a 1 hour high stake test for eighth grade. I could not find a single one in this State of the Union, not a single one. So CPS is definitely unique, but I think now coming back to the fold of 2.5 hours or so is what is the norm of what we see of large and small districts. Plus, you know the name of the test, you know where it's coming from, the umbrella, ACT. You can Google it. It's not a mystery, right? So there are resources out there. Okay, so that may have evened some of the odds, right? So we've got 4 sections now instead of 2. And what that equates to in numbers, because I'm a numbers girl, 92% more questions, a lot of content. And the way we used to teach that 1 hour test, we still would cast a wide net of teaching a lot of concepts because you never know what they're going to pull from. So for us, we really don't have to modify our curriculum because we've always kept it very robust with thousands of questions. The only unique thing, and we'll kind of talk about that, is the math. So take a screenshot of this if you want. You may have it already. We've been posting it on social media, on Facebook and Instagram. But just a breakdown real quick. 4 areas with science being new. I can't remember the last time. It had have to be over 10 years in my mind, at least, when they had the science component included. But some people are wondering, like, why science? But if you look at, there's always a reason, you know. So we look at like data and we follow the trends in the industry. But you should know this as a parent, that, you know, the mechanism in which the Illinois State Board of Education is looking at the schools and determining, you know, what measurement they are, whether they're target, whether they're commendable. They have different measurements, right, depending on performance. They are also now looking at science. Science wasn't necessarily included in the formula. So now science is included in the formula. It just kind of makes sense that, hey, we've got to be able to track data for students related to science. So here you see the breakout, and don't worry, there is a break that they give between the math and the reading. I think roughly about maybe 15 minutes. So they get a little break between and then they do the second half. Okay. And we're gonna have time for Q&A. I think there's a few more people in the waiting room. Okay, so let's see. Side-by-side comparison. Okay, because if you've already sort of been proactive and maybe you purchased some test prep, or even if you signed up for our test prep, which starts this Sunday, we're going to have multiple cohorts, and we'll talk about that later. Um, we have to sort of like shift the practice into giving them more questions and longer time frames. Okay, well, this is significant. Um, and you want to make sure that you sort of hitch your wagon, if you will, to an organization that's going to be able to make that pivot accurately and quickly, um, because there's really not a whole lot of time for 4 subjects now, with the test being in October. So this is what we want you to watch out for. Okay. But let me preface by saying, if you have received your end of year EOY report, if your school did some type of a standardized assessment, whether it's iReady, Start 360, different schools using different things, go ahead and type in the chat if you know what assessment, besides the IAR, because everybody in the state of Illinois has to do that one, the Illinois Assessment Readiness Test, but I'm looking for something beyond the IAR. But if IAR is all you have, it's probably going to be on a little bit on the weak side, because I don't think it'll include the science at this point in time. But you want to pay attention to those scores, because that may give you a sort of a baseline of what you'll need to work on. First things first, it's a 2.5-hour test. It is long. It is long, and they're going to have to build endurance. It's like running a marathon, right? You can dream it, you can imagine it, but when you physically have to do it, if you don't have the practice, you're not going to make it. So practice is going to be important, where they can get to the end and feel comfortable finishing a 2.5-hour test. I would imagine, based on our experience, what we've seen when they've introduced a new test. So let's go back a few years, and let me tell you about what happened when they introduced the 60-minute test. It went from 2.5 to 60 minutes. Well, I mentioned that the anxiety the students had, but some of the students just couldn't finish, or because time ran out. They were more of a patient thinker, right? They needed more time to process. And so they really didn't finish. And they were bright students, straight A students, on track for selective enrollment high school. So this is a test that there's no do-overs. Fortunately, um, there's still time, you know. It's early June, so that's why you're here today, because we got to figure out what needs to be done. But this is a big deal. Nobody should be sleeping on this at all, as a parent. That would be so unfair if your child got straight A's or A's and B's, and has been having, maybe Lane or Joan or Peyton or any of the other schools, Whitney. There's a bunch of wonderful options as their wish list, and now they're coming to the finish line, and they're thrown off by a curve because they're not prepared. Okay, so we don't want that to happen. The science, I will tell you, is about reasoning. We see it when we teach even the ACT. So when we do the baseline with the ACT, and again, this is a test that's coming from the umbrella of the ACT. Probably many of you remember taking that to get into your college. It's still the same organization. The science is really about looking at the information, the charts, the graphs, and making that interpretation. Where a lot of the students go wrong in the science, it looks more complicated than it is, so they get overwhelmed. But the key will be to look at the chart. The information is in the data and the chart. It is really explicit. So you have to learn how to read the charts and interpret that. Many of you probably have a math background and you're making charts and graphs and doing presentations for a lot of important people in your regular job, and it's second nature for you. Line graphs, bar graphs, all of those things. It's time to like really have your child understand how to interpret data looking at that sort of pictorial. Okay. If if you practice that, then they'll do well because the information will likely already be um, they'll be able to answer the questions by reading the charts. Okay, that's pretty much how the ACT is set up. The English mechanics, um, I would say whenever we do a baseline for the past 6, 7 years, the English has been the lowest marker. Now, you heard me say earlier that the previous test was two parts, math and reading. But whenever we did our assessment, the students scored very low on the English, which is why we kept it in. But it just also spoke to the fact that they're not getting a lot of that in school. Now the English is back and it's part of the test process. So it's going to be very important that they learn like the grammar. And we're talking about, yes, the pronouns, the nouns, the adjectives, the adverbs, and that's just the basics. Uh, comma, conjunctions, really all of the skills that they need to be a very good reader and writer. Okay. So how do we get them ready? Um, So for us, we're super excited because we've been working like a year and a half, really more than that, but diligently the past year and a half to design our AI solution. And since I've been in the industry for, over a decade and a half, um, our track record speaks for itself, where 85 to 90% on average of the students that come through our program receive an eligible score and a seat for the selective enrollment. And this also goes on with our blueprint where the same students are able to achieve high scores on their ACT and SAT and get scholarship dollars. So to date, following our blueprint, over $50 million have been received by the students within the city of Chicago following our blueprint, which is great. So the blueprint now is now more important than ever. So what we do, we have small group instructions. We have a live tutor. So we believe in, I think there's people in the waiting room. Okay, let me just let them in. Okay. Sorry about that. If you were waiting in the waiting room there, we are recording this, so we'll make sure you get a copy of this. Okay. All right. So take note here. Um, this is our structure. And we feel that, uh, this would be based on, teaching students who are preparing for the ACT and SAT. We feel that this is the best approach for a rising eighth grader. Because what you don't want to do is, how do I say? What you don't want to do is overload the student by having them take 1,000 practice tests. It's going to be too much, and it's probably going to backfire. There needs to be like an incremental strategy to build them up. Okay. And plus, it's just too long. One full test would, think about it, 2.5 hours. So if you're taking two, that's 5 hours. When it was an hour, that was easier. They can do one on Monday, skip a few days, do another one for an hour on Thursday. Okay. And that was fine. Parents wanted lots of tests, lots of practice tests. Here, the difference is going to be about what they learn and the strategy. Okay. So we start off by a diagnostic. And I'm so happy that all of you came today and showed up because it really shows me, that you care and you're taking this seriously. So we want to give you a diagnostic because you need to know where the gaps are. You need to know where your student is excelling and doing well, and maybe they're doing that independently outside of the school, enrichment classes that you've got them in. So having data is going to be very important. And then I'm going to share with you sort of like our approach, which is unlike any other. Our AI coach is actually called Ask Miss Lemmy. I know there's mixed emotions about AI. There's apprehension, uh, I have apprehension as well, but as an educator, I decided that, AI was going to be, you know, um, unleashed to our youth, and I wanted to make sure that I was there to do my part to make sure that the tool was being used for good to help our youth. So we work with the Kapoor Foundation to develop like AI literacy and responsible AI techniques. We won an award from the Kapoor Foundation for our research, and this was like 2 years ago. So we were very early grassroots in this, and so we took the research by going to the students first and asking them, you know, first teaching them, like finding out what they knew about AI, and then asking them, how much help do you really want? And we found that the students that were not yet in high school, they didn't want 100% help with the AI tool. They really wanted to try on their own. So we tried different grades, different concepts, and it gave us a wealth of data. So the AI study coach that we have, Ask Miss Lemmy, is built off of that, allowing for individualized, personalized coaching, 24-hour access for any academic question that's related to that particular taxonomy. And the taxonomy is the outline that I build. So for example, this test, which is the PreACT, that has a particular taxonomy, right? So I would build that out and the AI would sort of stick to those topics. So even if the student tried to ask about like the basketball game or the playoffs, then the AI is going to redirect them. That was very important for me because if I was going to use this tool and build this tool, I wanted to make sure that it was safe. Okay, and so we're so proud that we're able to achieve that. So the science, we talked about the reasoning part, progress report that is real time. So you get instant visibility on how your child is doing, and in this case, even after our course is done, we're going to continue to let the students have access. We put a date out there where all the testing should be done, which is October 31st. And the reason why we're doing that, as opposed to cutting off the portal, not only because it's not a whole lot of time, but we know at this age group, the students are very busy. They're involved in sports, piano lessons, swimming. I've never seen a more busier group of students than when they're like 7th and 8th grade. So that they're engaged in a lot and it's exciting to watch. So they need some flex time, right? So the way our model works, they come for the coaching, but the system allows them the flexibility. If someone is not available on a Saturday, that's their day of sports and practice and games. Then they're likely not going to do their outside assignments on Saturdays, but they may pick a Tuesday or a Thursday, something that's a little bit convenient. They may need to travel, which is why we pushed everything virtual. We thought of the family first and the dynamics of the family. So we're very pleased about that. And we feel that our tool will work to support those who want to get their child prepared for the test. So yes, the test is a different name that you're not really like familiar with. Like you've heard the HSAT is coming, the HSAT is coming, and now it's the the pre-SAT 9 secure, and there's a history about that naming convention because security in the past was an issue. If you guys kind of like your kids were very young, so maybe you sort of glanced over it in the news, but security online is important. So this is the secure test, uh, different name of what they're using, but for us, it's the same blueprint, it's the same work. And we're very comfortable in helping any parent who has a rising eighth grader prepare for this test. Okay, so um, my gift for you for showing up, and hopefully you registered. If you didn't register, I'm sorry. If I don't see your name, then it's going to be hard for me to verify who is here and who isn't. One of the reasons that we want to be able to capture that is I will set up individual accounts so that you would be able to actually see the results, right? So that takes some setting up of the credentials, which is why it's important to know, sort of take attendance, if you will. So this is, it's not going to be any charge. We do normally charge for this, but because you're showing up today and we really want you to get started, tell your friends, it's not going to be a situation where I hope that, oh, if I can't share my secret sauce because that is not, I may not get the seat, that type of thing. I think with this kind of test, you will find that there will be some disappointments, okay? And then you'll find some surprises because anytime there's a shift, that first year is always like, some surprises. But typically, those that sort of follow our blueprint and we do the assessments, we are rarely surprised by the results because the data doesn't lie as they speak. I mean, every now and again, you may get, one or two sort of unusual circumstances, but that's not the vast majority of the situation. So what we have that was already in play is we have virtual tutoring options for the summer. We already had this up since April. So our early start program actually kicks off on Sunday. That's block 1. That's your summer early start. Each of these blocks is 4 weeks. And you may say to yourself, well, now that the test is expanded, do we need more weeks? Is it going to be 10 weeks? What should we do? Well, we don't need to change anything because of the way we design our curriculum. And we already put in that personalized, tailored approach that's adaptive. So for us, the 4 weeks will hit the measure. In addition, the students will have access to the platform until October 31st. This is going to be the type of test where the students will have to step up. They're going to have to learn the materials. Not to say that they're not, but you're going to get out of it what you put into it. There's been some cases where you have some students where they're like, man, they don't have to do much. They don't have to study much. They just get it. This is a lot of content and a lot of time, and it includes science. Every student, for the most of them, will have to put in effort that they didn't expect. Okay? So we have our block 1, then we have our block 2, block 3, which is hitting up on August, back to school, and then our very last block would be September 13th. Now, some parents are doing multiple blocks. Some parents are doing like a block and then doing an extension. My suggestion would be to, if you're interested, sign up, and then we can determine next step based on the data. Okay, so I don't just randomly tell parents sign up for a block or 2. Like I told you, I'm a data girl. Everything's data driven for me. So we've got to look at the data, interpret it, and it's a case by case basis. Okay, so we were doing a lot of data manually all these years to really get those results and really keep track of you know, what works and what didn't. And so we're just really grateful that we're able to leverage more recent technology. We've always been like, ahead with technology, but we've really in the past year and a half been able to really supercharge and put, you know, our blueprint inside of a system where now anyone nationwide, not just in Chicago, can access it. So we're really proud of that. And if you're a parent where you came to us and your child was young and kindergarten or even academic center and you're coming back now, we want to thank you because it's because of you. And I see Agnes, I recognize her name, Michelle, many of you, and we want to thank you for supporting us. It means a lot and we don't take it lightly. But this is a tough business to be in, and you can imagine with all the fluctuations from like even the federal level, the budget cuts, the teacher downsizing, the classroom increasing, the college tuition prices going up, like you name it, there's always an excuse, a valid excuse that one can give to say, I'm going to throw in the towel. But you guys are the parents that, like me, never give up, and you've always supported us. And we're incredibly grateful for that. Okay, so um, we are offering this webinar every Thursday for the month of June at the same time. So if you have someone who missed it, someone who, would like an assessment and want to show up, I would say the sooner the better, because even with that assessment, you'll have your own roadmap to determine what to do next. And so let me, at this time, I'm going to pause the recording because I'm going to show you some proprietary tools that we have. And give me one moment.